and welcome back to another episode of Talking Terror. For this episode, I'm joined by Michelle Iannantuono, the director of Livescream and the new sequel, Livescreamers. It was a really great chat. We got to talk about digital horror, horror games, the whole Livescreamers franchise and how it's becoming a franchise with this one and the sequel, as well as what could be coming next for the franchise. It was a great chat, and I'm so excited to finally show you guys this video. But before we get into that, I want to take a quick moment to talk again about Fangoria. I mean, you guys know the spiel at this point, but if you don't, I'm going to give it to you. Fangoria is one of my favorite horror magazines. They are just the best of the best. Some of the best articles, best interviews. This is like essential reading for any hardcore horror fan. And if you don't already have a subscription to them, you are in luck because I have a discount for you. You can get 20% off an entire one-time subscription using my code Jacob the Harper. That's JACOBTHEHARPER. And that gets you an entire one-time subscription to Fangoria, and you guys do not want to miss out on this, especially during the holiday season. And hey, if you already have Fangoria, perfect gift for the horror fan in your life, I would say. And also, if you have a subscription but still want to use that discount code on yourself, not anyone else, you can go ahead and use that on anything in the Fangoria shop. They got dope t-shirts, hoodies, hats. They have a great selection on their shop. So once again, that code is Jacob the Harper. That's JACOBTHEHARPER for 20% off an entire one-time subscription or anything in the Fangoria shop. And that also, of course, if you use my discount, that helps me out quite a bit here on the channel. So kind of a win-win. You get some awesome Fangoria or Fangoria swag, and I get a little bit more support here on the channel. This issue in particular has like the Saw 20th anniversary. That I love this poster for Saw 20th anniversary, and then it's a Nightmare on Elm Street issue. So Freddy's like tearing through the cover. It's pretty dope. I've been catching up on some of these articles. It's a great magazine. I can't speak highly enough of Fangoria. So yes, use that code to get yourself a subscription. And one last thing before we get into the video, I want to take a quick moment to, first of all, thank you guys for your support on the podcast so far this year. I know we're heading towards the end of the year, and my upload schedule for these episodes has been shaky at best, if I'm being honest. It's been up and down because I only record when I have a guest booked, which I've considered doing solo episodes. But really, as it stands right now, I only do episodes when I have a guest booked and scheduled. So that alone can cause some of the inconsistencies. And also, I have just been super behind on my editing and recording these intros and outros. So I'm hoping to get better at those going forward. I have been talking with some amazing people to get them on the show. So look forward to some great guests coming up here soon. But I just want to thank you guys so much for supporting the show and bearing with me as I get everything situated and kind of go through the process of booking and editing and releasing these episodes. So thank you guys so much for that. So without further ado, here's my interview with Michelle Iannantuono about Livescream, Livescreamers, and everything beyond. Let me know what you think about it, and type in the comments anyone you'd love to see appear on the show. I have been trying to book more and more guests. I've been reaching out to people. You never know who will bite, So feel free to leave in the comments a suggestion for any future guests. And of course, let me know what you think of the episode. And be sure to hit like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you're new, if you haven't already. Lots of great horror content here on the channel. So yeah, thank you guys so much, and I'll catch you later. Peace. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Talking Terror. I'm here with Michelle Iannantuono, and we are here to talk about Livescream and Livescreamers. Welcome, Michelle.
Well, thank you very much. Happy birthday to you too, I guess. It's like when a waiter brings you your stuff and it's like, enjoy your meal, and you're like, you too. I'm so relatable.
That's what makes me relatable, I guess. I still get nervous doing the intros. Well, thank you again for joining me today. It's been a pleasure kind of talking with you about Livescream and Livescreamers over a few years now. We've been kind of
Mhm.
in contact about this. So I watched the movie last night. I loved it.
Awesome. I'm glad it lived up to the years of expectations.
Oh yeah, I mean, I had the fortune of watching it sitting down in bed on my laptop, like I was watching an actual like video game stream. So I mean, enhanced immersion, definitely. You know, um, so to start, I guess for the audience who maybe not be so aware, can you talk a little bit about live screamers and I guess live scream as well?
Yeah, they're both found footage horror films that take place on essentially like Twitch. They emulate, in the first case, Livescream emulates a Twitch stream with a chat and a single player. Live Screamers is a little bit more like a YouTube Let's Play. So you have like an edited collection of gameplay footage from 8 different cameras, 8 different characters, who all have their own webcam and their own POV of their gameplay footage. So different styles. I was on a different podcast the other day, and we talked a little bit about how it's kind of like IGN or like games journalism. Actually, some of these bigger companies that have full studio setups and everything,
Mhm.
and a team of editors and stuff who put their stuff together. And a lot of what live streamers are sort of talking about is more about that world, and not some schlub like Scott who's streaming to a few dozen people and has fostered his own sort of individual community. There's not really money involved. He just does it for the love of it. Live streamers is a little bit more about the corporate side of it, of like when people really monetize and create careers out of like playing games online and reviewing games and all this sort of stuff. What pitfalls kind of happen when you start to build that empire?
Oh yeah, and I definitely got that sort of vibe that you were going for, especially with like the commentary on the more corporate side of this. I mean, totally turned into an industry over the
Mm-hmm.
last like decade or so. I remember when I was younger watching like Minecraft Let's Players and seeing that transition from kind of like in the original, Scott, he just does it for a few fans, and then a full-fledged studio production of like
Yeah.
Minecraft Let's Plays, and seeing that transition was very odd, and seeing it come across in the sequel is it was really interesting.
Yeah, one of my favorite Let's Players is Michael Jones, and to see him, he started out doing the Rage Quit videos, on YouTube, and it was on his own, and then he got hired by Rooster Teeth and became the core 6 members of Achievement Hunter in the beginning, and then eventually stayed with the company until its disbandment this year. R.I.P. Rooster Teeth. And yeah, I mean, I think like a character like that, sort of charting their way from the gutter of YouTube to like this sort of corporate scenario. You do see it, and I think as well, like it has become very corporate, but it's still so unsustainable. Like you see that with the fact that like Rooster Teeth fell apart, even though they had a membership site, even though they had this massive convention that they did. And I think some of it was COVID. I think some of it, I bet they made a bunch of their money on RTX, and then when RTX couldn't happen because of the pandemic, it was like this huge chunk of their business just sort of evaporated overnight. um, but also, with scandals, with management shakeups, with being bought out by a corporate subsidiary, I think it was, I don't know if it was Defy Media, but it was sort of like Business Daddy, sort of bought them out. And yeah, all those things happened, and overnight it's like, oh wait, think we can make money on merch sales and sponsorships anymore. Like this is, we have 500 people who work here. They all need benefits. We need studio space. We're growing every year, but like there's less and less income on something like YouTube. There's less and less income on something like Twitch. Like over time, every platform just becomes harder and harder to succeed on because you hit the gold mine, and then all of a sudden the corporations are like, no, we can't have that. You can't make money.
Oh
Talk
yeah,
about Amazon Prime ad rates. I'll be here all day. Or streaming rates. Prime Video used to stream like a cent per viewer, and now it's like like a hundredth of a cent. It's just absolutely stupid.
they also, from what I gather about like kind of on Amazon Prime a little bit, kind of side tangent, they kind of started doing a quality control on what
Yeah,
goes on it, because I was
they
in the
started
middle of,
gutting some stuff for sure.
yeah, because people were uploading their Let's Play videos and their like family videos to Amazon Prime Video.
I
I swear to
remember
God,
that.
I was in the middle of filling out the forms to get my first short film on Amazon Prime when they started doing that quality control thing. I was
Yeah,
like,
and they
okay,
don't do
well,
shorts anymore. They don't do
no,
shorts.
they
They they,
don't.
they don't do documentary like that documentary, and it's like
Hmm.
nonfiction. Yeah, I mean that was all
Yeah.
to basically get around that. And yeah, Amazon as it is, VOD they take 50%, which is highway robbery. Like
Oh
50%
yeah.
for a digital product that you had nothing to do with. Like get out of here, Jeffrey
Hmm.
Bezos. You don't need my 250. But they also take half my Twitch income too. I actually did the math once, and I calculated between my live stream royalties from Amazon, and all the Twitch income that I've made for the past 5 years, all the money that I have made Amazon, and it made me sick.
Oh
It
God,
is
yeah.
tens of thousands of dollars, and I was just like, I could have had that if Jeff Bezos had not been so greedy. Hot takes with Michelle and Jacob.
Yeah. Oh yeah, hot takes only on Talking Terror. Don't be greedy.
I love capitalism.
No, we love it. We love it. That's
I
how
love corporations. What
I
are you
mean
talking about? I didn't just make a
that's
movie about that.
I mean, that's unfortunately the direction the art world is going in. I mean, everything needs to be a product now. I mean, and it's especially relevant with your movie because, again, like when we're talking about like seeing the transition, even from live scream to live screamers, this humble guy just doing it for fun to a full blown corporation. And I did like how you talk about the scandals that kind of come across there and having to cover up scandals to maintain a clean corporate image. That was really, and I don't want to get too spoilery, but it was a cool aspect you touched on.
Thank you. I feel like Mitch is a character. Mitch is the leader of
Hmm.
the group, and he's like the oldest character, and he kind of doesn't fit in because he's like built this thing that has appealed to a demographic that he's not in. And so like the demographic that likes the thing that he built doesn't care about him. They are only interested in like the other people in the group, which is like a really weird monster to have created. But also all the shit like kind of like he has to clean up because he's the one in charge, and it's like kind of a thankless job. And I've had a
Hmm.
couple people who like after screenings they were like, I actually kind of sympathize with him a little bit. He's kind of an asshole. He's kind of like a jerk. They're like,
Yeah.
I kind of sympathize. I kind of get where he's coming from. And I'm like, yeah, you're supposed to. Like, I think all the characters really, except maybe one of them. But Mitch included, I think like they do some bad stuff or they make some bad decisions, and it's like that's objectively morally wrong, but
Yeah.
like they are sort of just pressured by like the outside forces a little bit, and it's just like we all like to think that we would be better people. And I can at least definitively say that I have been in the position that Mitch has been in for several of those things, and I was the better person. But it's hard.
Right.
I'm also not rich, and I also don't run a $500,000 company. So like I'm not able to hire 8 gamers and have the next Rooster Teeth and that sort of stuff. I'm just humble single person Octopunk still. So it's like maybe if I had made some of those shitty decisions that Mitch had, maybe I would have been quote more successful. So I sort of get the dichotomy there of like, well, it sucks that this is the situation where like you have to do these sort of under the table things a lot of the times to like
Hmm.
survive.
Yeah, and like I agree with you. It's definitely a conflicted character, and that's what made him so interesting to watch in all of his scenes. Is that like when he's talking about this scandal that he covered up when the game exposes it, and I'm like, oh shit, like that's really bad. But then it's like when you have to manage all these people, and some of them are kind of assholes who do asshole things, and you kind of like, I mean, again, he didn't make the right decision, but you're like, wow, that sucks to be in that position.
Yeah, I'm really thankful that as Octopunk it's just me, and I've reiterated that to the public a few times of like, yeah, like I am Octopunk and maybe my spouse cuz you know.
Yeah,
But other than that, like any person who we consider part of the Octafam or whatever, like, frequent collaborators who've worked with me, 5, 6, 10 times in some cases, people who I have on stream all the time, familiar faces to the community. None of them are on payroll, and none of them represent my company.
Mm-hmm.
Which means that if somebody does something untoward, it's very easy for me to just be like, I don't, they don't represent me. I disown them. I can distance myself from that. But if they were on payroll and it was sort of like, oh, you're out here representing my company, you know, you got my company in your bio, all that sort of stuff, it becomes a lot more complicated.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I still have had a few times to get on Twitter and be like, just as a reminder, those actors don't represent. I do not necessarily agree or endorse a person just because they happen to have worked with me 2 years ago. They are showing their ass on Instagram right now, and I have nothing to do with it.
You're not affiliated with me.
They're not affiliated with me. If you don't like them anymore, that's between you and them. You can still
Yeah.
hang out over in my corner.
Oh yeah, and again, it's a very Live Screamers is a very timely movie, and we with Mitch, it almost reminded me a little bit of a. I mean, I don't know all the details. I'm not like too enthralled in the sword, but I do like see the Twitter posts and all that about like a certain streamer recently who got in some trouble, and people were finding out that Twitch was kind of covering up for him.
Oh, is this Asmongold, I believe?
No, Doctor Disrespect.
That okay, yeah, that was a few months ago. Yeah, Asmongold
Yeah,
was doing some other bullshit this week.
I
And
have been hearing his name in the news cycle. I am
I
not
don't,
all caught up
I
on what he's
don't,
been doing. I've been hearing his name in the news cycle though, so
I don't follow any of these guys. So yeah, it's mostly
neither do I.
you just sort of see Twitter. But yeah,
Yeah,
Doctor D, yeah, he was like really like he had millions of followers and he was doing some
he
inappropriate stuff. I think.
he from what I gather, he was one of the biggest streamers
Yeah.
on the platform, and then I don't know if they took him off the platform fully or if I'm not sure what the repercussions were, but there was some speculation, or maybe it was confirmed that like Twitch had like been covering up some stuff to try to keep him on their payroll and to keep bringing in viewers. And again, it just reminded me of it reminded me of Mitch, you know.
I mean, like, my life inspired this movie, but it's not a reach to say that I do not have a unique life experience, I think, by any means. I think
Oh no.
a lot of it can absolutely be extrapolated out to so many things. I actually, it was funny in editing because the movie was in post for like a year and like a half.
Mhm.
It was in post for a while. And at this point, you know, we shot it 2.5 years ago. And so there were several times where I would have to like edit something out of the cut because something went and happened, and it's like, well, that's too on the nose now.
Oh wow.
And the one that comes to mind is so Taylor, who is like the husband character. He's like very popular. He's very handsome. He like
Mhm.
brands himself as the Chaos King, and like the fun one. He has a wife, Gwen, in the group, and they're like the power couple or whatever. And you know,
Yeah.
you find out later that they're having like marital issues and that he turns out to be a jerk and all this other stuff, and does all this untoward things. But in the very beginning, the sort of thing, the inside joke for me was this guy constantly is like, I'm a wife guy, I'm a wife guy, I'm a wife guy,
Oh,
and
I wonder who this I wonder where this is going.
and like it wasn't just an observation that I had sort of made over the time. I'm like, why is it always the wife guys who turn out to be like? Because the person that Taylor was sort of based on in my own life was like that. He was always talking about how much he loved his wife, and then did some bad shit to his wife. And I'm like,
Right.
it's always the ones who advertise it, right?
Hmm.
And so Taylor says that a bunch in the opening scene. And then the Try Guys shit came out.
Yeah.
The Try Guys. I hadn't even heard of these Try Guys, but like apparently the head Try Guy, who was the wife guy, cheated on his wife with an intern or something like that.
Yeah.
And it was a consensual workplace relationship kind of, but it was still like there was a power dynamic, and it was still cheating, and it was still like he was the last guy you would expect to
Yeah,
cheat on
just
his
kind of a
wife.
gross
It
situation
was just kind
and
of a gross situation, and I had to edit that shit out of my movie because I was like, everybody's gonna know what Taylor is like in the opening scene of this movie if he says the words "wife guy," like
oh
it's gonna be too
no.
obvious. So I had to cut that, and then there's also multiple times where they talk about Twitter, and and I was like, you know what, we're leaving it. It's fine. Like, hopefully, Twitter will still exist by the time, and it does. So I was like, okay, we're in the clear there. I'm still gonna keep calling it Twitter. It's
Oh
fine.
Sam, I don't I'm dead naming Twitter
It is the
forever and always.
only time I will hostily or intentionally dead name anything or anybody. Twitter is still Twitter.
Oh yeah, no, same there, same there. I have a friend who's like, "Don't you mean X?" I'm like, "No, it's Twitter.
No,
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 it's Twitter.
we don't know X.
We don't know her."
That was a hostile takeover. We do not acknowledge this.
Yeah, no, we're not crediting it. Well, I don't know if I doubt you can name names, but I was curious if there was anyone specific that you had based certain characters off of and their kind of dynamic. So I mean, I guess there's one or two to try.
I mean, a lot of them are funny enough based on aspects of myself.
Mm-hmm.
I would say like Mitch, like I said, he's kind of been in similar positions to me, but just made different choices. But I sort of relate to a lot of the things that he goes through because I feel like in some ways, I got an audience by making fan films and people really latched onto the actors of those fan films. And I remember when we were sort of at our peak, there would be times where the actors would literally get credit for like writing and making the movie because like they were the face of it and um that was a weird experience to have put like 1,500 hours of post-production into this movie and all this free labor that I did and actors show up and they work for a week and then they get to go away and come back when a movie's finished and
Mm-hmm.
I was a little bit disgruntled by like the disproportionate attention between like the labor that I had put in versus the sort of attention that sort of all the actors got more so than me. All that to be said though, I think that we had a really good community ultimately and I think like the people who stuck around and have stuck around to this point are the ride or dies, like they're the cool people.
Mm-hmm.
And even the people who stuck around long enough to support Livescreamers crowdfunding campaign as well, and come to our fan events and stuff, and getting to meet a lot of them in person, it made me feel a lot better. I'm like, oh, actually they do care about me. They're actually very nice to me, and they actually really do respect the work that I put in. But you definitely have a handful of people who also like they'll show up on content, they'll show up on movies and stuff, and all they care about is a certain actor or certain actors, and then they'll complain when certain actors aren't in things and I'm just like, okay, if you're there for an actor, go follow that actor's career. I'm gonna keep making the stuff that I want to make.
Oh yeah, and that's always super unfortunate, and it happens a lot at like premieres. Like I'm a filmmaker myself, but I also like do a lot of film criticism, film journalism. So I go to these events and premieres, and I see someone like hounding a certain celebrity and like not talking to any of the other cast or crew, and I'm
Not
like,
talking to Lee Winnell, and it's just like,
yeah,
why
and
would
it's
you
like,
not
what?
want to?
I was at this one event for this really cool indie film that David Arquette was in, and someone went up and got him to sign a ghost face mask, and I was like, this isn't really the time for that, you know? It's like there's all these people here to do this very small indie film, and oh, David Arquette, oh, okay, okay, like David Arquette's cool, he's a cool guy, and then
But yeah, you're right. It's kind of
it's
like it's such a specific like pull of attention.
yeah, it's just
Um,
super awkward to watch. I'm like, oh, I
yeah.
can't do that.
But yeah, the some of the other characters. I mean, I think Dice has been sort of inspired by a combination of things. Sort of again, this disgruntlement at like there's I've observed that there are certain types of queerness that people really latch onto, and certain types of queerness that they say they're interested in, but their behavior doesn't reflect that. Their attention, what they give their attention to, doesn't necessarily reflect that. So I think a lot of Dice is me in that regard, but Dice is also kind of based on somebody that I knew who I kind of have a negative feeling about, who was so determined to be independent and not acknowledge that they had had help with anything that they basically alienated themselves from from a community, from other creators. It's just like this like there's a line that Mitch says to Dice. It's like you wanted to try so hard that you could do it yourself, and like and it's kind of how I feel about that person. So that's kind of my little dig at that person in the movie because I feel like creativity is such a communal thing, and also like none of so many of us, including myself, like there are moments where it's like, oh well, I was given that door to go through by that person, and like I would not be where I am had I not been supported by this person or that person. And it's really weird to want to throw all of that away, throw away all the help, and be out of pride, out of like,
Mm,
I need to feel inside that I did this myself, so I'm not going to accept help anymore. And it's like it's such a weird place to be.
it
um
is.
and then Lucy, I think it was sort of based on a few different people I've known, but also myself in a way. I've been the fan. I've been the one with the parasocial relationships with creators and
Mm,
idols and stuff like that. Nemo is very much based on an experience that I had with like somebody that Lucy was based on. And then Zelda is kind of me a little bit in the fact that like I've certainly experienced the bingos about like, oh, you're a video game person. Well, name every Resident Evil game, including all the different names of all the international remakes of the first one. It's like,
yeah.
it's but funny enough, Gwen is the one character that I kind of struggled with, because she's probably the one person who isn't based on anybody that I know personally and isn't based on myself. Everybody else was kind of like a bit of me, or like somebody that I know, or somebody who like hurt me, whatever. Gwen is just more of my observation of the industry, because I see people like Amaranth, or a lot of other, or Pokimane, or other very popular, very attractive streamers who play games, and the way that they are objectified, and the harassment that they face, and the entitlement that they face from the audience, and the possessiveness that they face from the audience. I think that it's I fall into a very, very odd position as a female streamer, in that most of my audience is female themselves, or they're queer, or they're about my age. They're people like me.
Mhm.
I don't really have like a bunch of men in my audience who are there for thirst reasons. So I've never faced the sort of stuff that Gwen has, and I've never really branded myself the way that she has, because quite frankly I can't. But the actress who plays her, Sarah Callahan Black, is actually a cosplayer in real life, and
Well,
man, I see her comments on Instagram, and they're mostly respectful. I will say her audience is mostly respectful, but I would still be pretty uncomfortable. It's just like, even though they're being respectful, it's still just
yeah.
like, I don't know that I necessarily want 70 comments of just like hi sexy, hi beautiful. Like I don't necessarily think I would want that kind of attention. And so she was able to bring like sort of the missing link to that, I think, as the actor, because she had a lot to offer in terms of like lived experience for that sort of character, that I'm sort of based on, women that I've seen and what they've kind of gone through in the industry.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, that kind of brings me to my next point a little bit on like the casting process, because I feel like everyone kind of fit like a glove into their roles. So I'm curious what your process was casting this.
It depended on the role. Three of the characters, the role was written for them. So in the case of
Mm.
Nemo, Dice, and John, those roles were written for Michael Smallwood, MJ Slide, and Christopher Trindade. The role of Gwen was actually written for an actress named Jillian Gertz, who was attached to the project until about 4 weeks before we shot. She ended up having to part ways amicably with us, for some conflicts. And so Sarah was actually like a last minute casting. Sarah was only cast within a month before the movie. And Sarah got the role because she's local to me. So she wasn't going to add any extra cost to production for travel or anything like that. But also, yeah, it was sort of like, if I'm going to bring in somebody kind of last minute, I want them to really intuitively understand this character. So the audition was really great, that she gave, and I felt like she had a lot to bring in terms of lived experience that ultimately was just a perfect fit for that role. In the case of Mitch, he was auditioned. I ended up casting a friend of mine named Lucas Hassel. He was also a last minute dropout, about 3 weeks before we shot. And so, because the blacklist ended up summoning him to go, NBC gods ended up summoning him to go be his character who had died. He was like, I didn't think they could pull, my character died. So he ended up being pulled away. And then I recast him with Ryan LaPlante, who is a friend of mine, a filmmaker and writer based in Canada. Again, great audition. He runs a podcast content company in real life, so he was able to, again, sort of intuitively understand that character, and is also probably the funniest person I've ever met in my life, and was able to bring this kind of levity to Mitch that I really
Hmm.
like. And of the remaining cast, so you've got Evan Michael Pierce as Davy, you've got Kobe Oram as Taylor, you've got Anna Lynn as Zelda, and you've got Neoma Sanchez as Lucy. Those were all open calls on Backstage that had up to 1,000 submissions from all over the country.
Oh wow.
And I basically looked at headshots, for weeks. I narrowed each of them down to about 15 auditions, and then from there narrowed it down to about 4 callbacks. Second audition that we did on a Zoom call, and I had them read against another actor, and then decided from there. And so in the case of Davey, that Evan was just the best in the callbacks. He read against Christopher, and I really felt like the chemistry that they had together for John and Davey was just perfect, and that was what we were looking for. So Evan was cast. In the case of Zelda, I cast Anna Lynn, who was a local here in Charleston, who I'd wanted to work with for a while, and I really liked the energy that she brought to our audition. So I cast her. And Kobe Oram, that one's a weird one. He gave me an audition that was completely different from the sides that I had written, and I thought it was weird. It was weird. I laughed at the audition. I was like, "This audition's so weird," and I found I couldn't stop thinking about it. I couldn't stop thinking about him reading these like devastating, icky lines and making me laugh. Like, what kind of like energy was this? And I found I actually really liked it because it brought this sort of cluelessness to his character. He kind of Kobe reminds me a lot of Joe Keery from Stranger Things. I feel
Mm.
like he brings this kind of Steve Harrington energy to the role that I didn't know was what I was looking for, but was perfect. It really like contrasted against some of the more serious male characters in the room. And so he was cast, and then finally Neoma Sanchez. She was my very first auditioner. She's local here to Charleston. She actually was auditioned before it went live to everybody because she was one of Michael Smallwood's students, acting students. And I really liked her audition. It was beautiful, but I just wanted to see if there were other options out there. And ultimately, I auditioned a bunch of people, again, did callbacks. And then when she read against Michael, I just knew that she was perfect because they did have that rapport already for Nemo and Lucia. I felt like that was a really, really important thing to have this sort of like almost idealization that
Hmm.
Neoma sort of naturally bring. I mean, she couldn't stop calling him Mr. Smallwood in the very beginning, which is really cute because he was her teacher. It was like, you can call him Michael, your coworkers. It's okay. So the fact that she called him Mr. Smallwood through the whole audition, I was like, yeah, this is not only is she wicked talented, and just really, really like good at playing multiple angles of that character that you sort of see throughout the movie. But yeah, just having that existing rapport with Michael just made it perfect.
Oh yeah, and Lucy's character really stuck out to me, because going in and I had known about the parasocial aspect a little bit, but quite like I didn't quite see that in her until like the reveal kind of towards the
Mm-hmm.
end, because I was like, oh, is it gonna come out that like one of them was like, because like Taylor's character got in trouble talking to fans, so I was like, oh, is that someone gonna come out because they have a fan on stream? And but it was like having it come the opposite, where she was, after kind of parasocial with Nemo, I was like, oh my god, that's like that just elevated her character so much with that reveal and how she played it like so innocently till the very end there.
Yeah, and I think that what Neoma sells and kind of how I directed her was the character's not evil. The character doesn't know that she's done anything wrong. And I think that that's what makes that transition kind of smooth because you don't
Mhm.
have this sort of like it's not a revenge story, you know what I mean? Like it's not a maniacal thing. Some people go into the movie thinking that one of them has like is in cahoots with the game in some capacity, and it's like, okay, well, that's a decent red herring, I guess.
Mhm.
But like, no, nobody's in cahoots with the game. The game is a consequence of the circumstance that they found themselves into, and really consequence of Mitch. ultimately though, like she doesn't really think, and even up to the end doesn't really think that she's done anything wrong, because she's justified it to herself. She's made excuses for herself, and that was sort of some of the behavior that I observed in the people who inspired that character of, you'll just sort of never get through because there's not really a recognition of the harm that was caused, or the the impact that was made. It's just sort of um, justified. And yeah, I think Neoma's really good at being able to bring both.
Hmm. Oh yeah, oh yeah. It was a creepy reveal because I when it was revealed that I was like, okay, she's either going this is either going to be a revenge plot like you had said, or she's going to apologize because it was kind of an intense moment where both their lives were at stake, and she did neither.
Yeah,
And I was
yeah.
like, okay, that's an interesting way to play that. I was like, oh, she's either gonna take her revenge and go after him or apologize for it in her final
Yeah,
moments. And
this is why I'm always very interested when people are like the ending was predictable, because it's like I think there's some amount of being able to predict, I guess, the reveal of it, like that, that's kind of signposted.
mhm,
But what she chooses to do with that reveal, and also I believe his reaction to the reveal, I think are quite surprising, regardless of
yeah,
whether or not someone saw, the overall like secret coming. I mean, I'll tell you what, like every time that crossbow looses a bolt for the first time in a theater, you can hear the gasp ripple through the entire crowd.
that got me because like I said, I was like, okay, he's gonna forgive, and it's like, oh, we just got to get through this, and I was like, oh wow, no, he's mad.
Yeah, because you don't get over trauma in 90 minutes. It doesn't happen.
That's true. It's like it's this is a real guy, and he's like, no, you did that to me. Like you're not getting away with that. No,
Nope.
I
Yeah.
I don't see how that's predictable. I love the ending.
Thank you.
Oh, of
Yeah,
course,
I think between there's like five turns in that last 5 minutes. Yeah, so I'm like, man, if you predicted one part of it, you're not gonna predict the next four. Like, somebody said the other day, he's like, I really like how the movie's kind of got the alien thing going on, where you're not entirely sure who the protagonist is until like maybe the last 5 or 10 minutes. And I was like, yeah, I think that's kind of true. Like, you definitely
Mhm.
don't know in the first 10 or 20 minutes for sure. It's sort of equal opportunity. In the script, it was more obvious that I was trying to set it up as Zelda. Didn't really translate to the final film, unfortunately, I think.
Right.
But in the script, it was very much Zelda. Zelda was like your POV character in the script. Like the first 25 pages, you could tell were written through her eyes. So I love a movie with a false protagonist. I love that. I love Scream, Nightmare on Elm Street, like any movie that fakes you out, makes you think you're following the main character in the first like 20 minutes and then pulls the rug out and it's like, nope, they're dead. I love movies like that. So
Oh man.
I was attempting to do it myself, but I think ultimately I was never going to be able to pull that off, because Lucy being the odd one out, like the audience character, and also a young person, like a teenager, was like, you would always sort of think like, this is clearly like the POV character, like this is probably the lead, right? This is the
I
final
mean,
girl.
I was surprised when what happened to her. I didn't expect it to happen so early. I was like, kind of took me out of left field a little bit. But it's so funny you bring up Scream. I love the opening to Scream.
That
That
whole
scared the
movie
hell
is
out of me when I was a kid.
one of my favorite horror movies of all time. I think it is the plot progression that I try to write on. Like, I think the slasher formula that it sets up is very strong, and the fact that you always have an opening kill and scream, which I've never been able to really achieve, just because of the nature of the movies that I make, are they're in real time,
Mhm. Yeah.
But I do follow the formula that outside of the opening, you have to kill somebody off in your first 20 minutes. Like, you can't, if you're going to do a slasher, your first kill needs to be the doorway that leads you into the second act. And so both Livescream and Livescreamers sort of follow that formula.
Hmm.
Livescreamers has a sort of strange kill count, in the sense that it's very backloaded. Livestream is a lot more even. Like you kind of kill somebody off like every 15 minutes. It's sort of
Hmm.
stable throughout. You sort of lose people at a steady rate. Live
Consistency,
streamers
yeah.
Live streamers gets most of the cast to the third act and then very quickly it just starts.
That's what surprised me because I was sitting there watching. I was like, I'm enjoying myself. But I'm like, what? Surely not all these people live. I'm like, these guys are gonna have to start dying really quickly.
And then they do
They do.
at a
And
very fast rate.
I'm not gonna spoil who it is, but I love a good decapitation. And this movie's got a damn good decapitation scene.
I've heard mixed things about it. I think now that it's out on VOD and I've touched it up a little bit since its festival run, people are more positive about it. I think Matt Patterson, my SFX guy, did a really good job with it because like that's a tough thing to achieve, especially because we were doing all the SFX in one day,
Mhm.
and we were also trying to. It's tough because you only have this webcam. You can't move it and you can't cut around it. You can't show a second angle. You can sort of show somebody else's camera and then cut back if you need to like split it into two shots, but that's all you get. So everything has to be done in camera with something killing you that's invisible.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was really tough, and he came up with a really good idea to have another character kind of be the reveal of it. And yeah, it was a very fun day on set, very bloody. We had to tarp the ceiling and stuff.
Those are always the best days on set, the bloody ones. So
Oh,
those, you're getting your
it
hands
was
really dirty.
Dextered the hell out of that place, and we it's pancake syrup is the blood, so the whole place smelled like Waffle House.
Oh yeah. Oh, that sounds nice actually. Sounds like a fun time. So, I'm a big proponent for kind of modern day digital horror. I feel like it's a good extension of the very famous found footage genre.
Hmm.
Because I know live screamers and live scream is found footage, but I don't know like if it's an official term or if it's some of the communities kind of ran with, but digital horror, like Unfriended.
Screen life is usually the genre we call that. So that's anything
Hmm.
that's on a computer screen. So like Unfriended, Zoom. I think Chad Gets the Axe is considered, or Deadstream is considered screen life.
Deadstream, yeah.
Because there is a chat element and stuff, and it is like you are watching a YouTube stream, so I think that qualifies, even though it is a lot of like GoPros and stuff like that. I think it still qualifies as screen life. And yeah, I always mispronounce this guy's name. Timur Bekmamatov is sort of the person. He did searching and missing and
Oh,
profile and
yes.
hidden window. Like he's done a lot of screen life, and I believe he's the person who coined the term. And yeah, he's sort of he made Wanted in 2008 with James
Mhm.
McAvoy and Angelina Jolie. And he's been talking about making Wanted too, and he's like, I think I need to make it screen life. And I'm like, Timor, not all movies have to be screen. I don't think Wanted 2 should be screen life. I don't know. I mean, maybe like
I
go
mean,
for it,
seeing
but
seeing like a James McAvoy level movie through like Screenlife would be pretty interesting.
I mean, he's got some famous people in some of them. Like John Cho is in I believe that actor's name is in
Searching,
Searching.
right? Yeah, I love.
Yeah.
So I haven't seen Missing. I know that came out either late last year or early this year. I don't remember.
Yeah,
Fairly recent.
I definitely saw it on streaming. I don't remember when though. I thought it was quite good. It does a thing that I had to sort of like put my screen life sensibilities aside a little bit.
Mhm.
It's very edited and it's not in real time. It's like you'll see like stylized like text messages flying by, and then like to show there's montaging in it, which
Yeah.
like I was surprised that people haven't been little bitches about that because some people are like really purist about it, and they're like, if it's not in real time and if there's score and all that sort of stuff, it's not found footage, it's not
I
screen life.
mean, I'm not as like live and die by because I think it's still and I think the genre is still in its infancy. So
Yeah,
I feel like there's enough wiggle room to kind of play with the rules a little
yeah,
bit.
and it's like it's maybe not my taste, and it's not how I would make a screen life movie, but I'm also just like, I'm not gonna be purist about this. Like
Right.
I'm gonna accept that this is the way he chose to tell the movie and
Oh
just
yeah,
sort of go with it. And I also think when it comes to found footage generally, but especially screen life, it kind of is important sometimes to be like, look, sometimes we do have to make the choice between what's realistic and what is good for it being a movie.
oh yeah,
Like what sometimes realism does not make a good movie. And there were Livescream in particular. There were a few things like some people have been like the chat is too readable to be like realistic, and I'm like, yeah, but do you want to have a chat that's not readable in this movie? Like, do you want to have a chat that's like full of emotes and indecipherable people and trolls and like all this other stuff? And it's like I'm gonna tell it the way the story benefits from the most. It makes it
yeah.
easiest on the viewer to be able to understand the story being told. And if that means it's a little less realistic than it actually would be, whatever.
Well, I mean, like the less active chat works for live stream
Hmm.
because it's a smaller streamer.
Hmm.
I've always kind of seen it because like, have you seen the movie Spree?
I love Spree.
Me too.
It might be my favorite screen life, like one of my favorite found footage movies ever. It's again Joe Keery. I love Joe Keery.
Yeah,
So he's delightful in it. It's really well put together, and I think that's one that like yeah, there's some clever tricks that they do to stylize it and that sort of thing, but it never feels like they're cheating. Like it feels like it stays pretty in real time, like pretty
yeah.
pure to the medium. And it's just a boatload of fun. What a great performance. It's
I love
delightful.
Spree because you had brought up Joe Keery, and then you brought up in missing the search bubbles and or no, the text bubbles and all that, and how Spree did it, which made it a little is that he was screen recording from his phone, so you could
Hmm.
see the text, and it made it a little bit more of a seamless transition
Yeah,
than it just appearing on screen.
I definitely feel like everything that was in his movie was very motivated. Like
Yeah.
whenever we see things, we understand why we're seeing it.
Mhm.
And I've seen some screen life cheat a little bit in that way where you see something but you sort of get pulled out of it a little bit because you're like, wait, why would they be filming that? Like their camera wouldn't be on during this. Like this doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
um and so it's tough to walk that line a little bit because you do want to like have the flexibility of, look guys, it's a movie, I'm gonna like I have to show you this for whatever reason,
Mhm.
but you still don't want to pull the audience completely out and like break the verisimilitude and the suspension of disbelief about what they're seeing. And it's really easy to do that in found footage, unfortunately. Like that's people like go to found footage because they think it's easy and cheap to make, and while there's some element of truth to that, you can do something clever without a lot of resources. It's also very easy to mess it up. It's very easy to do things that are
Yeah.
contrived or things that don't make any sense, because at the end of the day, it's liberating in some ways, but it is restrictive in others. I will not say what this project is, but I have an idea for a found footage project that I have waffled back and forth on whether or not I want to make it found footage, because the production of it would be way easier if I made it
Mhm.
found footage. But quite frankly, the motive of it being found footage, it's thin. Like
Right.
it's a little thin. It doesn't lend itself completely natural to being in that medium, and I'm still trying to sort of figure out like maybe if it just should be, shot like a normal movie.
Hmm. Well, I'm curious, what are your thoughts on movies that are kind of like half and half? Where it's like some of it is shot normally, the other is very found footage style.
So the movie I think of, I guess I won't say the name. There was a Screen Life movie I watched a while ago that becomes a normal movie in the third act. And I
Mm.
didn't fully buy into it. I didn't hate it. I was just kind of, it was a circumstance where the narrative could not support the fact that they were on a Zoom call anymore. Like the things that the characters had to do was like leave their house. Like that's the only way they could resolve the story. And so I was sort of like, yeah, that's a little bit. I understand why they had to sort of not be screen life anymore because like the narrative doesn't support it. but I'm also a little bit like maybe there could have been like found footage in other ways to keep it found footage the entire way, because it was a little jarring to see the format break. Um it's just it's almost like an uncanny valley feeling actually, which in some cases can be cool. And
Yeah.
maybe that was what they were going for, is a little bit of a disturbing kind of feeling, and is it like I'm wondering if the point was to make the audience a little unsettled, because I think it, I this is a weird thing to compare it to, but I love Cyberpunk 2077. It's one of my favorite games of all time, and that game is pretty much entirely in first person. You're only in third person when you get on a motorcycle.
Mm.
Otherwise, it's first person the entire way through. And so it's very, very immersive. And then in all of the endings, and I didn't know that this was going to happen before, it really jarred me. In all of the endings, you get a third person cutscene. You see your character, your character, your V, talking, and interacting with other characters and moving through the world in third person for the first time. It's jarring. Like
Yeah.
it is really like it's emotional in some ways, like in a positive way. It's like, oh my gosh, like I feel like that's my guy, yay. But I think in the case of this horror movie, it's kind of like there's an uncanniness of like I've seen these people through a screen, and you almost have like this sense that they're a real person. And then all of a sudden you switch to normal movie mode, and there's like this cinematic wall that goes up, and now they're characters, and now you're like sort of thrown on the back foot. And I actually think like it's kind of cool in a way, especially in a horror movie, to like
Mm.
throw your audience a little off kilter like that. I don't know if it was intentional for me to feel that way, but I would like to almost try to make an audience feel disconcerted by switching formats maybe unexpectedly in a movie. I also think like it's really disconcerting when you have a character who is in a scene the entire time and then they spike the camera. They do that all the time in The Curse by Nathan Fielder, that series on Showtime. And it's deeply unsettling. It is so unsettling because they shoot that show like it's reality. They'll shoot from like football fields away, like they're spying on the characters. They'll shoot it on like handy cam like style. Like you feel like it's shot like reality. So there is already this like sort of lack of drama, but the characters never look at they never break the fourth wall. They never show the camera crews like the characters are convinced they are in like a fictional world. They are fictional characters. But then just occasionally, out of the blue, they spike the lens. They look at you, and it's like, I don't like this. I don't
That's
like that.
like that's like unset. That's like if they don't acknowledge that they do it, it just happens randomly. That's creepy.
It's so creepy. There's especially like the creepiest one in the whole show. Everybody should watch The Curse, by the way, and anything by Nathan Fielder. I'm such a massive fan of him. Like he is great at being unsettling and making unsettling art. But there's this moment where you see the characters and like they're shooting from inside a house. The characters on the outside of this window, and they're shooting from like inside of like a living room. And it's really again like you're on candid camera style sort of like cinematography, because like it's shooting these characters like they don't know they're being filmed like from inside this house. But there's a lady in the living room who like owns the house presumably, and she's just watching TV or whatever. And then they just keep cutting back and forth between like this interior shot and this exterior. And then at one point they cut to the interior shot with the lady, and she's spiking the lens. And I was like, I don't like this. I don't even want to see a still of this. That is so fucking. And she's like smirking a little bit. And yeah, the show like is 10 episodes long, and it probably only happens 4 or 5 times in the whole show, but it happens enough
Yeah.
for you to be creeped out and to not know like all sorts of theories like I was rotating through. And ultimately like they never really give an explanation for it. It's a stylistic choice. It's not like it's not like a reveal kind of thing for the show. And also the show ends wildly. So but I was my mind was racing. I was like, wait, is this a setup? Are they being filmed? Like, do they know there's an audit? Like, what's happening?
That's weird. That's
It's
really
great.
weird.
So yeah, I kind of do like, I guess, when people sort of blend the two a bit. I think it can be really unsettling when you
Mm.
don't when your audience doesn't quite know what the rules are. with the cinematic wall and the fourth wall. I think like when you sort of break it unexpectedly, or you don't have it for a whole movie and then all of a sudden it goes up, can create a really kind of interesting experience. But I also think, again, like with all found footage, it has to be in the hands of somebody who knows what they're doing and is doing it intentionally, and like has like a plan for kind of how they want the audience to interact with the piece.
Oh yeah. I feel like with found footage, it for a while hit a point where it was a big thing at the box office, and it got really oversaturated. People started asking like, why do all these people record everything? Like you're on like the fourth or fifth Paranormal Activity, and you're like, your life is not that interesting. We need to be recording all of that.
And then
But it
YouTube
makes for the
became a
movie.
thing, and it's just
Oh
like, well,
yeah,
maybe they're a little vindicated.
yeah,
Yeah, I haven't seen really any of the Paranormal Activities actually, and
really.
it's a very silly reason why actually. I tried to get through the first one, and I made it about 15 minutes, because the sound was like the camera sound, and I couldn't understand, like my audio processing just wasn't like, I couldn't understand what anybody was saying. And I was
Mm.
like, it's okay if your sound isn't perfect, obviously I know they filmed that movie for nothing, but I was still just kind of like, if I can't understand this movie, then I can't get into it. I should probably give it a shot someday, and maybe with subtitles, and especially some of the later ones that were like professionally, kind of made, and surely have all that sort of stuff
Oh
figured
yeah,
out. But yeah, I think, obviously Blair Witch, we owe so much to that movie, making it mainstream. And then Paranormal Activity was sort of like the next Blair Witch. And then you
yeah.
kind of don't have anything for a while. I think Paranormal Activity like occupied a lot of energy for a good 5, 6, 7 years.
Mm-hmm.
And
Relativity
then
was 06, right? It was 2006, 2007, something like that.
something like that. Yeah, it was not, it was like mid to late knots. And then you started to have some screen life. You had Unfriended and things like Missing, and actually, I will want to shout out this because I feel like they don't get enough credit. Collingswood Story in the early 2000s was, to my knowledge, the first Screen Life movie. They were
Mm.
really ahead of their time. Um, Everybody says it's Unfriended. It wasn't Unfriended. Like Collingswood was a decade before. And there probably are others like in between those 10 years that we just don't really talk about as well. Um, and then, you kind of went quiet again. And I feel like since 2000, since 2020, since Shudder really has brought a lot of it back,
Mm.
with Deadstream and Host and Chad Gets the Axe. Um,
The
and
VHS reboots, or
oh,
reboots, yeah, because they're under a new producer. But
yeah, I would say VHS. The original VHS was like what, 2012, so that was kind of
mhm.
like, right on the tail of Paranormal Activity. So VHS took a lot of time through the 2010s, and yeah, them rebooting VHS and doing the shutterization of VHS, has been pretty big for them. They didn't want my movie, but only certain people get to make found footage for Shudder. But yeah, I think, they've certainly brought a lot of found footage back into the mainstream, and I think they acquired Skinamarink as well. So, and
I
Outwaters.
I loved Skinamarink. I can
Uh,
go on a whole hour long tangent on how much I love that damn movie.
that is a movie I'm kind of like too afraid to watch. So I actually think I'm probably in the camp of people who would be a Skinamarink defender. I think just on the
Mhm.
surface of it, I'm a Skinamarink defender. I feel like
We
that movie
welcome
is
you.
that movie is vibes, and it's spooky vibes, really creepy childhood fear of the dark vibes, and even just the
Hmm.
idea of it, like, oh, I get it. Like
Yeah.
just like
It,
I get it.
the way I've always described Skinamarink to people when they're kind of uncertain about it is like, imagine if the fever dream you had when you were 8 years old was put into a visual medium.
You know
That's
what it
kind of what it is.
You know what kind of reminds me of actually? So when I think of like long hallways and dark
Mhm.
houses and like being scared in my house as a kid, I grew up in Wilmington, North Carolina, and we had really bad hurricanes in the 90s. And in particular, we had Bertha, we had Floyd, and we would go days at a time sometimes without power. And so I remember being like 5 or 6 years old or even younger, and like we would have these little oil lanterns and candles in the center of the living room. That was the only light we had. And the hallway was so dark. The bathroom, especially, was dark because it was just like a dark bathroom. Bathtub is full of water because that's how you hold water in a hurricane. And then I remember that like it was just a single candle or oil lantern, and the way the light hit the bodies of water and like reflected all over the like bathroom. It's just something that I remember as a kid, like that I was kind of afraid of the dark. And I was in the dark a lot. And it was usually just me and my mom because my dad worked at a power plant, so he was usually at work like dealing with putting the power back on. So yeah, I'd fuck with Skinamarink. Like
Oh
I think I
yeah,
got
with
enough
with that
connection there.
backstory, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Which I feel I actually I interviewed the director on this podcast. He's really cool. He's a really cool guy.
Kyle
Um,
Edward Bell, I think, is the
yes,
director's name. Yeah.
we just won a Chainsaw Award. Shout out to the Fangoria Chainsaw Awards for that.
Yeah. Well, and also like I mean, love or hate the movie, you gotta give the guy some respect. Of like, you don't see stories like his very often anymore.
No.
Like you don't see people who like don't have any Hollywood connections, who literally, their movie takes off, and very cheap, low budget movie, legitimately low budget, like
Oh yeah.
15,000, not 150,000, which they say
Fi-
is low budget, and it's like okay, sure,
Yeah. I mean,
technically.
15K, and I think he made like 60 times that at the box office, and like because at least I mean I live in kind of a not small town, but not like a big like arts town. But it was only at our local theaters for like what was it, 2 weeks,
I mean,
2 weekends maybe.
I just hope he got that dough because I
Me too.
know in those sorts of circumstances, it's so easy for distributors to screw you and to take. I know the folks who made the Velocipaster is another one that's kind of famously like very popular. Like it's a
Mm.
household name, that movie at this point. But their distributor was not maybe so great, so they
Oof.
are not millionaires to my
Yeah.
knowledge,
Goes
and they
back
should
to the
be.
yeah, right. Goes back to the start of the show. These distributors taking like
That's why I'm
50%.
self-distributing live screamers.
Oh yeah.
I've been through a lot with this movie in terms of just being lowballed by people, just being so lowballed to the point where it's like you're not doing anything for me that I can't do myself. You're not even willing to give me upfront money. You're not even willing to pay off my pretty small amount of investors up front, really. And so I kept the rights, and now I have the rights to both movies, and I can do whatever I want with either of them. I can put them wherever I want. So it's great. And has it been a smash hit? Have I made $1 million? No, but I would not have with a distributor either.
No, and I
Um,
mean,
and now I know, I get paid on time because it's my accounts, and I know where the money's coming from. I know that I don't need to audit anybody. And yeah, so it's good. And through the process as well of getting the movie made, like, um, you know, I saw something the other day about Terrifier 3. And I want to say it's their lawyer who's on Twitter. I don't know if it's their lawyer or if it's somebody. He's an attorney who made this tweet. He was talking about how everybody had made an offer on Terrifier, that everybody tried to get Damien to sell to them, but they wanted him to give his rights away. They wanted the IP.
right.
And something similar kind of happened to me. And I declined it. And in their case, they are millionaires. And I was going, but hey, here's the thing: it's like distributors flop movies all the time, and nobody
Hmm.
gets rich. Everybody takes a financial bath. At least if you hold on to your own thing, then the only person you have to blame is yourself. And you also, like, if it flops, it flops. You move on to the next. If it's mid, at least you have it forever, and you can recoup it over time. And if it's a hit, man, it's yours. So
Yeah.
It's a good thing to have. So it was cool to see that he had kind of been through some of the same experiences, and he
Mhm.
held, and I'm like, okay, I feel good. I feel better about holding,
Oh,
and
yeah.
not giving it away.
I was reading an article about that Terrifier thing and how apparently, and I don't know when in the because there's Terrifier 1, which came out like 2016, and then Terrifier 2, which came out 2022, and then Terrifier 3, which is out now. Somewhere along the timeline there, I believe, if I'm remembering the story correctly, he was approached by a distributor or company, a pretty sizable company that would have gotten it, like I assume a big release, but they said you have to remake the first film with less gore. Like we're gonna take it,
Oh,
like
wow.
we're gonna take it from the top. We're gonna buy the rights. We want you to direct it, but we want you to make it palpable for the audience. We want you to kind of neuter it a little bit.
Mhm.
Um, and he declined, which I assume at the time that was a big gamble to decline because I mean Terrifier 2 made a lot of money.
I
So
wonder
I'm
if it was
assuming the story
Lionsgate.
was oh,
Mostly because
they,
they made Saw. And I like Saw's pretty gruesome, but it's also still Hollywood gruesome.
right,
It's still like compared to Terrifier, from what I've heard, it is because I'm not super into the gore, so I haven't seen the Terrifier movies. They're not my type of
right.
movie. But from what I've heard, Terrifier makes Saw look like child's play. Um,
It's certainly not Hollywood gore. It's not the type of gore Hollywood would be okay with.
Yeah, exactly. So I
And
so I got it. Yeah, I kind of wonder if it was Lionsgate, just 'cause, on the sheer speculation that they were the people who made Saw, like nothing else. And they also made Reaper the Genetic Opera, which again is gory and visceral, but also Hollywood gory.
right.
It's there's a difference. There's absolutely a difference.
It's funny we talk about distributors because the way I came into contact with Livescream, I have my Blu-ray here, busted it out. Was I was asked to beta test a website for like Blu-ray shopping,
Hmm.
and they're we have a new website and we want you to test it out. I'm like, okay, cool. They give me like a discount link to buy some Blu-rays. And I saw Livescream and just like the premise, I was like, oh well, I like Unfriended. I think they're fun. And I watched it. I was like, this is so much better than Unfriended. Because Unfriended is like, here's the thing. I watched it when I was at that age where I thought Unfriended was the coolest and scariest shit ever. And then as I got older, I was like, okay, kind of like it's a little cringy. But then now I've kind of come back around to where it's it's fun camp, but like
I
I
think
think
it does.
Livestream did the formula like, way better.
I think Unfriended does some things right, in the sense that it did establish Screenlife to the mainstream, so that can't
Right.
be understated. I think the kills in it are pretty good. The Blender one especially is
The
gnarly.
blender. Oh my god, yes.
The one thing I don't like about Unfriended that I think keeps me from going back and ever rewatching it is that I'm pretty sure, if I remember right, I don't think anybody dies to like 50 minutes in, and it's like a 90, 100, it's like an hour and 20 minutes. Like that movie doesn't become a horror movie till like the third act. And I was, again, Scream formula. You better be killing somebody off in the first 20 minutes. Your movie's an hour 20. We need to like start killing these bitches
Right.
immediately. This needs to start being a horror movie. And I feel like the movie kind of just like takes its time doing other things for a good
Right.
45 minutes. And I'm like, oh man, they could have compressed this down to
It,
about 20
it,
minutes.
it does spend quite a bit of time establishing the dysfunctional friendships because there's been so much saying, "Oh, don't invite this person to the Skype call. I hate her," and "Oh, I don't like this person. Don't invite them to whatever." And it does lean into that a bit much. So I agree, but God, that blender kill is so cool.
Once it becomes a horror movie, it becomes pretty great. Like once things kick off, it becomes pretty good. It's just the first half. I'm like, oh god, this is a little slow. This is a little. And people
Right.
would argue that hey, it's character development. That's it's a slow burn. Sure, maybe I just went
Sure.
in expecting something different. Maybe it's a movie I should give another shot to for sure. Um, I've only seen it the once. I saw so somebody when I first made Livescream. And I made Livescream because I wanted to make a Let's Play horror movie. Like it was just
Mhm.
so I was into that scene, and I thought, wow, I could make a. I'm watching features every day. I'm watching features that are guys playing video games. What if I made a feature that was scripted? It was
Right.
kind of like the dots. I've connected them. But then after I made it, my best friend Alyssa was like, "Oh, it's like Unfriended," and I'm like, "What's that?" And I didn't know, and so I went and watched it after I made the movie. After I had made the movie. So I think I was like really amped. I was really expecting like it to be similar to kind of what I had made in terms of like horror and pacing and that sort of thing. And then it wasn't. And I
Mhm.
never watched it again. So I'm kind of like, it's been like 6 or 7 years. And I went in with certain expectations. So maybe that wasn't fair to the movies. So maybe I should
That's
give it
fair.
another shot. I did like Dark Web better. I saw that in theaters.
Yes, I was about to say I loved the sequel far more. Like I take it more seriously.
Yeah,
Uh,
I think
Unfriended, I'll throw on as like a campy kind of fun watch for like nostalgia. But Dark Web actually like unnerves me a little bit because there are people like that,
yeah, Dark
and
Web.
that bothers me.
I do think the swatting stuff is really scary. The fact that it isn't supernatural does kind of make it more scary, and I say that as a person who has a supernatural threat in my movies, but like still,
Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, the
um,
supernatural threat is like it's scary, but like the human trafficking element of Dark
yeah.
Web was like super like, oh, that's oh, whoa, we're going there.
And it's another movie I've only seen once, but I do remember it being more evenly paced. Like I want to say that they don't waste time in that movie. That like stuff they start like kicking some stuff off pretty early and pretty
Right.
consistently. And it was also about adults instead of teens, which kind of I think I might have preferred a little bit. But I still think the king of Screenlife Zoom movies, like Zoom specific movies, is still Host. Like that movie does not waste a second. And what they were able to accomplish VFX wise, especially in the pandemic, is phenomenal. Like
It's
they
great.
hung a guy over a pool, and I'm like, wait, how do you do that?
Yeah, somebody gets lit on fire. Like,
Yes, I'm just like, how the
damn.
fuck did you do that?
No, and like Host was I went into Host almost even though everyone had told me it wasn't, I went in fully expecting Unfriended.
Hmm.
Like kind of campy, but like it'll have some scares. But
Like,
we're all
no,
gonna
it's
have a
actually scary.
yeah. It was like I was horrified watching Host. Like that shot where it's like the face filter and you just see like the outline of the face just sitting there, and then it just turns. Oh my god!
Yeah, the way that they play with Zoom and like the timeout at the end is also so funny. What a funny ending. And like the digital backgrounds and like all that sort of stuff. The fact that they
Mm,
utilize the features of the medium to the most as well is just so cool. I can't say enough got good things about that movie because like I I will admit I was slightly bitter when it came out because it was on Shutter. It was like a 55-minute movie. It was Screenlife. It was all the sort of detractors, that people had sort of said about Livescream. They were like, we're not going to take it because of Screenlife because it didn't have a famous person in it. It's too short, all this sort of stuff. And I just sort of made peace with it and whatever. And then a year, or not even a year, like Livescream came out on VOD in January 2020. So like 6 months later, Host comes out and then blows up and everything. And I was slightly bitter. I was just like, oh, so it's okay now, Shutter? It's okay to have a 50-minute movie? It's okay to have Screenlife now? Okay. But then I watched Host and I couldn't even be mad because I was like, man, this movie smokes mine. This movie's so fucking good. I was like, this movie deserves everything because it is so fucking good. So yeah, no, absolutely no hard feelings at all. I would have been really, I would have held a torch to this day if the movie sucked. But no, the movie is actually legitimately fantastic, and I
it's
think, I mean, I like. I really would argue that Host is better than anything that I've ever made, unironically. So people can debate about that in the comments if they want, but I'm fine if people believe that. If people are like, yeah, Livescreamers isn't as good as Host, I'd be like, yeah, no, you're probably right. I'm not offended at all. This is a great film. Nobody's done it as good since.
Host is pretty great. I was watching because I was watching the Chainsaw Awards on Shudder. They do like the live TV application, and afterwards they started playing Late Night with the Devil. I'd seen it like a million times at that point, so I kind of fell asleep watching it. Then I woke up in the middle of the night and they were playing Host on the Shudder TV, and it took me a minute to realize when I was watching it scared the hell out of me. Like
Mhm.
jump screaming while I'm barely awake, and God, yeah, host is great. Side tangent, the host is great. But I will say about Livescream, one thing I did kind of miss this in Livescreamers, was the variety of the horror games.
Mhm.
Because I love horror games. I love how there was kind of parodies of like Alien Isolation, Five Nights at Freddy's, all these kind of popular horror game streamers had scared themselves to death playing previously, and I enjoy watching people scare themselves to death playing because I'm a total bitch when it comes to horror games. I mean, I can watch horror movies day, night, whatever. It stops phasing me after a while. My buddy and I, and my coworker, we have started replaying Outlast for the first time in
Good luck.
years. Yeah, he was over the spooky season. Let's watch let's play Outlast on my Switch. And I'm like, fine. We hook up the TV, and it's just, oh my god.
Have you ever played Whistleblower?
I
The
haven't
DLC?
I haven't played it yet. I have the Outlast Trinity, but I haven't played Whistleblower yet.
Yeah, Whistleblower is a heavy influence on live streamers. There is a whole sequence in live streamers that you when you get to it in Whistleblower, you'll be like, oh, this is what that's from. Yeah, it's pretty gnarly. I would recommend if you don't get around to it. Michael Jones and Gavin Free play pals on Achievement Hunter. They do a
Mhm.
full playthrough of Outlast, which is delightful, by the way. Like I watch it all the time. But they also do Whistleblower, and it's only like 2 hours the DLC. It's pretty fast.
Hmm.
So yeah, I think it's worth checking out. Also, Whistleblower really ties the story of Outlast together super nicely. Like it feels like a great fourth act for Outlast, and really gives you a satisfying ending. Whereas the ending of the original Outlast is maybe a little unsatisfying.
Hmm.
So I think Whistleblower ties it up and gives you like the true ending in a way that I really enjoy.
Does it connect to Outlast 2 at all? I haven't
No,
fully played
no.
Outlast 2.
Outlast Whistleblower is part of the first game. It is the DLC, and essentially it takes place before and during the original Outlast. You're just another guy in Mount Massive running around at the same time as is Miles Upshur the first one? Yeah, Miles Upshur is the
Yeah.
first one. Waylon is the name of the second guy. So yeah, like Waylon's like running around doing his own recording of nonsense and trying to get out of the asylum as well.
Hmm.
I was joking the other day with some folks on the found footage Discord because we were talking about Outlast, and some people like Outlast 2, some people didn't. I'm one of the people who doesn't like Outlast 2. And then the Outlast Trials came out, and you kind of go back to form a little bit, except gameplay wise, it's like Dead by Daylight. And I'm like, look, if they do Outlast 4, there was actually a third guy there that whole time, I would be down for that.
How many
Like,
people are trapped in this asylum? How many
just
people are
go
coming?
back to the first one and be like, yeah, there was a woman in the female ward, and all the villains are women in this one, and you know you never saw any women in the first game, so this one's different, but it's still the same. It's still Mount Massive that first night, and I'm like, I'm here. Like, give me that. Give me 8 hours of that. I would love to
Sure.
play that.
No, I've been loving replaying Outlast, but again, I am just such a bitch when it comes to horror games. Even like I was replaying Five Nights at Freddy's. I'm like,
Oh
how am I
no,
scared by this?
because jump scares, it's awful.
Yeah. Again, it's cheap and it's dumb, but it does get me and it's fun. I have a good time with it.
It's like when you're trying to open a can of biscuits. I can't stand it. It's like,
Wave it to the pop.
I hate it. I hate it. It's one
Yeah.
of the things I hate the most in this world is trying to open a can of biscuits. I literally have to get other people to do it for me. I can't do it. Yeah, no, it's the anticipation. It's awful. It's horrific. I should make a little horror short about opening a can of biscuits. I feel like that would resonate with some people.
Absolutely. I'd watch that.
It's just like you zoom in and you know what's gonna happen, and then like when she opens it, like she explodes, like I feel like a horrific, like visceral,
Their head just explode. Like at the end of Raiders of the Lost Ark.
just blood all over the kitchen. Yeah, it's a great minute long short. Nobody take that, or somebody do. I don't care. Go tag me if you make my horror biscuit short.
I love that.
Just give me a story by credit.
So Livescreamers, as of right now, sits at 90% of Rotten Tomatoes. Congratulations.
Thank
That
you.
is freaking awesome. So kind of what was the mindset go like trying to go from live stream to this?
Make a better movie. um, yeah, I feel like, I mean, the movies are the before and after picture of me having been a fan and then having done it. Um, and I think it's been interesting to see the duality of responses that I've kind of gotten, like, or not even duality, the different sort of categories of responses that I've gotten to both movies. Um, you have your people who tend to be journalists, like, people who write on Rotten Tomatoes or write for festivals,
Mm.
who have never heard of me in their life, never saw Livescream. They're only given Livescreamers, and they've been pretty positive about it. They're like, as a standalone movie, this is pretty dope. Most people anyway. Some people are like half and half. I've got a couple like 50%, from a few reviewers or letterbox reviewers or whatever, because they're like, I like the game, but I hate the characters, or like, I'm not really into this. It's not for me, but it was still well made. And so you have, that category of people who are only familiar with live screamers and tend to be pretty positive. Then you have people like yourself who are familiar with both movies and
Mm.
find something to like about both. Generally, as well, people in your category tend to also like the second one a little bit better, maybe, which I feel like is the objectively correct response. And that's not putting in the subjectively correct response, because everybody is different. But I would say that technically, story wise, gameplay wise, the second movie is more cinematic, it's more well made, it's more skillfully put together. The subjectivity comes in with, does it resonate with an individual person better than the first one did, and does the audience member actually like watching the second one more than they like watching the first one? And that is debatable per person, because there are people who actually really like the first one better.
Hmm.
And you have a few people who are like, I like the first one slightly better, but I still like the second one. And then you have a few people who love the first one and hate the second one. They really don't like it at all. And so, yeah, just to see the whole spectrum sort of form, I didn't think it was going to be as divided as it is. I sort of thought we would just sort of all come to a consensus that it's like, well, yeah, the sequel's better. But
Right.
what I'm finding is that, you know, the first one has an earnestness to it. I think the relationship between Scott and Jeremy Jumping Wolf is a huge part of it. The movie's very sentimental. Some people hate that it's sentimental, but the people who like that it's sentimental are my buddies. I love your 3.5, 4, 5-star letterbox reviews about how great and made you cry, and it's sentimental and all this sort of stuff, and touched you in some way. Um, but unfortunately, the second one holds more criticism towards like a different group of people, quite frankly. But it is sort of critical, and I think it's emotional too. I think that there are definitely emotional moments in Live Screamers,
Hmm.
but they're not as vulnerable, I would say, as and not as raw as they were in Livescream. Livescreamers as a whole has more of a cinematic lens. It's just sort of more um, architected. I suppose, rather than Livescream, which is just very rough around the edges. But I think people like it. It feels more real to them because it's rough around the edges.
Right.
So yeah, just sort of like the process, I suppose, was trying to make a better movie that looked better, that sounded better, that had a better script, that tied up a lot of the plot holes, I suppose, or things that people had issues with the first one. Like, people wanted more on-screen death. I gave that to them in Live Screamers. People wanted more explanation, or more attempts for the main character to call the cops, escape the game, defy the game, not believe the game, so easily or so quickly. So I'm like, okay, we're gonna go through all the list of all the bingos and all the different characters' responses to this and what they think, and sort of get them to a point where they buy into the concept instead of them just immediately buying into it. Um, as well as the fact that I think I wanted to make it more of like a feature running length as well, like 90 minutes instead of 65, like the first one, which is more traditional. So definitely more of a more marketable movie, like a more traditionally like accessible movie, more of what people expect when they rent a movie on Amazon. I think sometimes people rent Livescream and they're like, "Wait, what is this? What did I just buy?" They're much more friendly on Tubi. I feel like they kind of have their guard down a little bit on Tubi. They're a little bit like, "Was I just came from, whatever I just watched, and let's put this on. This is
Fair.
coming next." I've had a lot of surprisingly good reviews since it went on Tubi.
I mean, I
But yeah,
went into Livescream blind, and I loved it. I mean, it's just it's an interesting blind watch.
yeah, I think people have been kind of reacting to it that way. I think it is a movie that if you kind of go in without preconceptions, it does serve you better than going
Mhm.
in thinking that it's going to be something else or going and wanting it to be something else. It's always interesting when people go in and they're like, I wanted this to have a lot of on-screen kills and to like see the people in the chat. And I'm like, that would break format. So you don't want this movie to be what it is.
Right.
Because like if we broke format, then I would have to break format to do the things that you're describing. Um, so yeah, I think that was sort of the goal, is just make a better movie. And whether I succeeded that or not, I believe I did, but I didn't necessarily make a movie that you may like more, I think is the
Right.
trick. I think it is your mileage may vary, which Livescream resonates more with you and which you enjoy watching more, and that is perfectly valid. Please keep watching them both and debating about it on Twitter, because the more people argue about it, the more people watch it. So it's I win either way. They're both my movies.
No publicity is bad publicity, you know. I mean,
Not in this case. It's just
or
like
bad publicity is good. I don't
if
know. I don't
somebody
know the
comes
term.
in and says I hate them both, I'm just like, I don't know how I could have pleased you, but cool.
Yeah, I mean, there's some people who would say, "Well, why are you even watching?" Like, if you have like a notion of what it is, but you're still kind of like hating on it. It's okay. That's
I've had a
like,
couple people who are like, I hate this because I hate live streamers, and I'm like, why are you here? Why, I don't
why did
know.
you why did you watch a movie called Live Screamer?
It's pretty clear what this movie is, sir. I mean, like I said earlier, it's like I don't watch the Terrifier movies. It's no shade to them. I know they're not my type of movie, so I'm not gonna
Fair.
watch them, have a bad time, and then complain about it on the internet. It's just like, no, I'm gonna be like, that has an audience. I'm not the audience. I wish it the best.
Yeah, I mean that's how it is sometimes with the internet and horror. It's an interesting debate every
I think
time.
I think with horror, it's a double edged sword, because horror is so great because it's so communal. Like people
Mhm.
really rally around different movies and they rally around creators, and but I do think it creates a little bit of FOMO in people, where it's like, oh well, I have to watch this because everybody else is and everybody else is talking about it and I want to be in on the conversation, even though this is not a movie that I am the target audience for or that I think I will enjoy. I think there's a little bit of that where people give everything a try. They watch everything because they just want to watch a good horror movie.
Yeah.
And I'll give credit to people as well. I think there are people who they try to watch outside their comfort zone, and that's a good thing to do too. Is to watch movies that you suspect you might not like, but you watch them anyway in hopes that
Mhm.
maybe they'll surprise you and maybe there's something there. Like I said, I get a lot of surprisingly good. So
Yeah.
I've taken some people by surprise and taken them out of their comfort zone a little bit with some of the movies they've seen.
Right, right. And I definitely think like the kind of like FOMO aspect you had mentioned, I think that might be kind of happening with Terrifier 3. Because of some people who are like, I haven't seen any of the Terrifier movies, I'm binging them, and I'm going to go see Terrifier 3. And then they're like, not really a fan. I was like, I feel like you could have told that by watching Terrifier 1 and 2.
Yeah,
But
they're
hey,
not
you
going
know
to
what?
change.
You know what? If an extra few bucks in the Terrifier team's pocket and, word of mouth, good or bad, draws attention to the product, I'm not going to sit here and say don't go see it,
Yeah, yeah.
but is what it is. I am curious though on the topic of live. And I don't know if you can give an answer to this, but do you have plans for maybe a third installment in the live Scream franchise? Is there anything
My
on the
answer
table?
my answer to that is I got two things on the table for next year that I can talk about. The first one is I'm remastering Livescream,
Oh
which
wow.
is its own sort of interesting dichotomy because, like I said before, it's rough around the edges, and some people like that. And so trying to remaster it in a way that doesn't suddenly make it look like a AAA game and as good as Live Screamers and all this sort of stuff is sort of a interesting line to walk because it's like we want to improve upon sound design and the way the chat looks and the immersive qualities and just like the technical aspects of the movie without completely betraying its roots.
Hmm.
I'm also working on a branching novel or a branching narrative visual novel game called Live Screamers House of Souls, where you can play as a variety of characters in Live Screamers, go through the plot of Live Screamers, but any character can be the sole survivor. And then in terms of a movie, what I say about this is if I ever make another live scream movie, you will find out the day it comes out. I'm not doing this shit again. Where I have a movie that I crowdfund and then I take on the festival circuit and then I have in post production for a year and then I cannot do this again. I cannot have people in my DMs asking me when it's going to come out and just doing all that again and like stringing people along. People are so impatient these days. I'm just sort of like, no, it'll be a surprise. It'll be one day you'll just wake up and maybe there will be another live screen movie and or maybe not.
Hey, I mean, I would be happy waking up to that. That'd be a
It's just
cool.
gonna be Beyonce. It's just gonna be Beyonce drop live scream 3, whatever.
Yeah, I like that plan. Well, cool, cool. So, kind of a finale type question. If you could direct any horror film from any horror franchise, what would you? What would
that's a
you?
that's a good question.
Which one?
Which horror franchise would I like to take on? Does Godzilla count as horror?
You know what? I'll say so.
Sure, Godzilla.
Love
Because
that.
Godzilla is my answer for the franchise. Like, what franchise would you like to do? Yeah, it's Godzilla. I have several ideas for Godzilla and Mothra movies that I would love to be able to make. So I don't know that they would any of them would necessarily be horror, but maybe
I mean,
I
monster
just
movies.
I just want to work with Godzilla. He's my fave. He's my boy.
I'm more of a Kong guy, but I get it.
Hey, we need Kong guys too.
Yeah. I mean, look, if there's a fight going on and one of the competitors is a big monkey, I'm going with the big monkey. That's just my nature. But all the respect to the Godzilla stands. I loved the new Godzilla X Kong Empire movie earlier this year. It was fun. Well, awesome. Again, thank you so much for coming on here and chatting with me. Congratulations again on the film. I really enjoyed it, and I can't wait for other people to enjoy it as well.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Of course, thank you.
I'm gonna head out. There's something flashing in my living room, and I need to make sure it's not my candle burning my house down.
Good idea. Well, thank you for joining me.
Bye.
Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Talking Terror. It was an absolute pleasure getting to talk with Michelle Iannantuono about Livescream, Live Screamers, and everything digital horror. For those of you who know, I am a huge fan of that subgenre of horror. It's a little bit niche, kind of just beside found footage. Not that found footage is niche, but like it's kind of a spin-off of found footage type stuff, and I'm a huge nerd for it. We talked about Spree, talked about Live Screen, The Gallows, Unfriended. We talk about all this sort of just found footage digital horror spin-off that I'm a huge nerd about. So it was fun to nerd out about it with someone on this podcast. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. Once again, just before you go, I want to remind everyone about the Fangoria subscription that I am offering a 20% off coupon for an entire one-time subscription to Fangoria. If you already have Fangoria, Congratulations. Now you can gift Fangoria. You can give the horror fan in your life the best gift possible with Fangoria, a one-time subscription, 20% off, using my code Jacob V Harper. That's JCOBTHEHARPER, Jacob V Harper. And if you don't have a Fangoria subscription, what are you waiting for? These are the holy grails to any horror fans' reading collection. They're just great. Each issue is just jam packed with amazing articles, amazing interviews. I can't speak highly of them enough. I know I say it every episode, but I can't get enough of them. So definitely do yourself a favor, or do a favor for the horror fan in your life and get that Fangoria subscription. Once again, 20% off using my code Jacob V Harper, JCOBTHEHARPER. With all that said and done, thank you guys so much for watching, and be sure to leave a like and comment on the video who you would like to see featured on Talking Terror next, as well as what you thought of this wonderful interview. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already for more horror content, and I'll see y'all when I see y'all. Peace.